स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शांति शांति शांति। Namaskar my dear friends. I am to make video on Sri Maharishi's Way, a translation and commentary on Updesa Saram. It is one of the best book by Bhagavan Sri Ramana MahaRishi. Of all the works of the sages, Upadesha Saram is considered the supreme legacy of his teaching. One might cite Ulladu Narpadu as an equally revealing exposition, but the former was composed as one integrated work in a single sitting without revision, while the other was a collection of different verses that he wrote at various times and which were later assembled by Muruganar. Updesa Saram was written by Sri Bhagavan not only in his native Tamil but also in Sanskrit, Telugu, and Malayalam. So important did he consider this essential teaching. Though he had made no study of Sanskrit grammar, his spontaneous composition in the lilting superstar meter of that classical language so impressed the great Sanskritist Kavyakantha Ganapati Muni that he promptly wrote a revealing commentary upon it. This supreme teaching covers the traditional four paths of sadhana, karma, bhakti, raja, and Gyana Yogas, or those of action, devotion, mind control, and knowledge, respectively. By Raja Yoga, Maharishi means essentially pranayama or breath control, as a means of quieting the wayward mind. He had little use for that aspect of Raj Yoga known as Hatha Yoga, which was most likely to prove a handicap to spiritual progress because its emphasis on physical movements and positions and functions made far too much concern with the body. The Maharshi does not present these four ways as equally efficacious practices, since for him only the last of these is ultimately essential. Three methods are described in the first 15 verses, while the remaining 15 are devoted to an exposition of Gyana Yoga. The others are seen as practices leading up to and qualifying the individual for the inescapable and direct path of Atma Vichara self-enquiry. Bhakti, however, in one sense holds a special position in his teaching, as we will see later, and he has even stated that Bhakti and Gyana are the same. What has compelled interest in Upadesha Saram over some 40 years has been the Maharishi's answer to a question which the author asked him about the meaning of the very first verse about our control over and responsibility for our actions and their fruits? His answer was that our actions are all ordained by the Creator, but that the supposed problem of fate versus free will is only for him who thinks he is the body. The oft told story of the origin of Updesa Saram is this. This described how Upadesha Saram came into existence. The great Tamil poet Muruganar was composing a poem based upon an ancient legend about a group of ascetics who were performing various rites in the Dharuka forest. They hoped thereby to obtain special powers for the fulfillment of their worldly ambitions. Lord Shiva, in the guise of a mendicant, seeing the error of their ways, and accompanied by Vishnu as a beautiful woman, appeared before the ascetics. They were overcome with the desire for Vishnu, and their wives were entranced with Shiva. Driven by jealousy, the ascetics used the magic powers they had acquired through their austerities to send a tiger, deadly snakes, and an elephant against the mendicant. But when Shiva used the snakes as a necklace and killed the other conjured beast, the ascetic magicians fell at his feet and asked for instructions as to how to achieve the bliss of liberation. Muruganar wrote the rest of his poem but felt that only the Maharshi, as the very embodiment of Shiva, could write the needed instructions. Thereupon, Ramana MahaRishi composed 30 verses in Tamil entitled Updesa Undiyar, describing the various ways to liberation, culminating in his own prescription of self-enquiry. He then translated them into Sanskrit as the essential teaching or Upadesha Saram. This treasury of instruction and guidance manages to summarize, explain, and integrate the great traditional margas or paths of Hindu religious discipline, and then to show the unique way to human freedom which he himself offered to contemporary humankind. Karma, Bhakti, Raja and Gyana Yogas are each suited to a different type of individual or to a different stage of a person's spiritual development. Atam Vichara, search for the self, is the Maharshi's own way, sanctified by his own experience. The ultimate question. The Maharshi's answer to author's question as to the meaning of the first verse of Upadesha Saram was specifically that the body is subject to destiny alone. This fate is dispensed by the will or Shakti of Ishvara, the manifested Brahma. It is not determined by the actions themselves nor by the will of the individual who suffers or enjoys such fate. He has said elsewhere, the ordiner controls the fate of souls in accordance with their prarabdha karma. Whatever is destined not to happen will not happen, try as you may. Whatever is destined to happen will happen, do what you may to prevent it. And all the activities that the body is to go through are determined when it first comes into existence. It does not rest with you to accept or reject them. He applied this to even the smallest detail of one's life, such as taking a drink of water or say 10:37 in the morning on November 10th. One might intellectually at least accept such an absolute were it not for his seemingly contradictory statements made to others, such as free will exists together with the individuality. Individuality. As long as the individuality lasts, so long is there free will. Another confusion was added for the author when the rest of his answer to his question was the mind is subject to both destiny and free will. Our mental attitudes certainly affect our actions. So, if the mind has even a little free will, then we must have at least a little bit of control over our actions. I often pondered this dilemma. Were these differing pronouncements made simply to accommodate the understanding of persons at different levels on the spiritual path? Another answer, not always obvious at first, is that sometimes he refers to the individual, the jiva, and other times to the real self, the atma. The former being bound by destiny and the latter utterly free. We are, of course, in one or another sense, either of these and both. So far as the individual person is concerned, it is clear that Indian sages have unequivocally denied the possibility of free will. Vivekananda insisted that free will is a contradiction of terms. Nisargadatta Maharaj, when asked, is there no such thing as free will? Am I not free to desire? He replied, oh no, you are compelled to desire. In India, the very idea of free will seems so ridiculous that there is no word for it. The Maharshi's reply that the mind is subject to destiny and free will is expanded in his earlier reply to a devotee. The only freedom you have is to turn your mind inward and renounce activities there. But since the individual is an illusory entity produced by the imagination of the mind, itself an illusory entity springing from the I thought, your mind cannot be stopped by your will. The will that controls even the mind's reaction to events, its ability to remain detached as mere witness without the sense of doership, must be the one supreme will. This ability, then, from the individual's standpoint, cannot actually be free will but rather freeing will. Is this the ultimate meaning of Ramana MahaRishi's the only freedom you have? If we identify if we identify freeing will as that power which restores the suffering individual to his original identity, returns him to his blissful source on a path prescribed by the Guru. Then the power which launched him on the outgoing path of creation, birth, death, rebirth, may be designated as binding will. In any case, there is only one will, that of Ishvara, the Lord. Then what of the struggle that takes place in a person between his desire for moksha or liberation and the pull of the vasanas or tendencies which hold him to the old patterns of fear and desire for pleasure, fame, and comfort? We must view both forces in the eternal struggle as divine forces, each the manifestation of divine will of Shakti. Both the enslaving and redeeming elements have but one origin. The lines spoken and the action done by the heroic and the villainous actors in a play come from the same playwright and cannot be changed by the players. The foregoing exposition, though true to Maharishi's own teaching, is almost inevitably unconvincing because each of us is certain that we make choices and do or can exercise our own wills every moment of the day. This is the wonderful play of Maya, the basic mechanism of the world illusion. For the truth of the matter can only be convincing with the surrender of our wills. Has the Maharshi not said that surrender is one of the two paths and that it does not really differ from vichara? You cannot surrender unless you know who you are, and you cannot know who you are unless you have surrendered the ego. Vichara is bhakti, or rather prabhakti. Sri Maharshi has said that we are, all of us, in a sense really Gyanis, moving on the outgoing or the incoming legs of life. We all live under the same imperatives, move towards the same redemption. Without the outgoing, there could be no mirror of creation enabling Brahma to see itself. The bound and the free are each necessary. The bound cannot choose, the free do not choose. For there is no choice. Upadesha Saram describes the incoming path of return. To read and absorb its meaning is to receive His freeing will, His grace. The ascetics of the Daruka forest were, they thought, exercising their own free will to perform ritual austerities and actions intending to bring them power and happiness. The Maharshi explains in the first verse, however, that karma or action has no power in itself and that its fruits are dispensed by Iswara, the real doer. But if the ascetics had not been so misled by the binding power of the Lord, they would not, as a result of their subsequent disillusionment, have asked for Shiva's grace and received his freeing will. We, like the ascetics, are living and struggling under Iswara's binding will. We, like the ascetics, may also imbibe this supreme teaching, the Updesa Saram of Bhagavan Maharshi, who is himself Shiva, offering his freeing will to those destined to accept it. And if we are transformed thereby, it is not through our free will but by his freeing will. When the Maharshi says that the body is subject to fate alone, he includes all bodies. Even the Jnani's body is under the control of Prarabdha Karma. When he says that the only freedom one has is to turn inward and stop the mind's activity, he includes Jnanis as well. So, how does the Jnani differ from the Jiva? The individual bound by time and space and circumstance. The only difference is that the Jnani knows who he is and no longer identifies himself with the vulnerable body because he has already turned inward irrevocably. But do not devotees believe that the Jnani can, if he so chooses, control the actions of his body, work miracles, etc. Of course, he works miracles of love and grace because these are his very nature. But he has no purpose or desire to do such and does not even think of them as miracles. The very desire to exercise siddhi, supernormal powers, is a denial of moksha or of liberation. But one may yet say, "Ah, I prayed and sacrificed that I might come to your feet. Is all such efforts useless?" Sri Bhagavan has replied, "Who says that efforts are not effective, but who made you do these things?" The last vestige of ego is to believe that the individual has himself the power to fall at his feet. It is he alone who brings each to him. Sri Maharshi quotes, "Thaino Manawar, O Lord, coming with me all along in each birth, never abandoning me, and finally rescuing me." Such is the experience of realization. Does all this convey a sense of futility and the uselessness of human effort? On the contrary, it reveals that when effort is needed in the divine scheme, effort will be forthcoming and effective. But it will not be our effort, however much our ego tells us that it is. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, "I am the effort of those who make effort." In stating that one has free will, the Maharshi is addressing the eternal I in each of us and not the illusory ego I. This free will is what he tells us is the whole purport of the scriptures. When he says the freedom you have is to turn inward, he speaks to the real self in all he sees. He tells us no difference between himself and ourselves, that we are all ever free, bound only in our imaginations, and yet, in the ultimate sense, the real self is beyond all pairs of opposites. beyond bondage and beyond freedom as well. Who is it that is bound or free? That's why his stress is always, who am I? Until that question is answered, any other questions such as those concerning free will and destiny can be answered only in a tentative way, offering tentative truth against persisting illusion or maya. The answer can really be found not in the inadequate medium of words, but only in mana, that stillness, that silence which he represented during his lifetime and which remains his legacy. So, this introductory video ends here. Next video number 2 will start with stanza number 1 of Updesa Saram. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Thanks a lot. Namaskar my dear friends.